Hi, so my name's Ben-Ari. I'm founder and CEO of a company called Applied Blockchain. We're a Web3 development company, and we're based just across this river in Canary Wharf at a place called Level 39. We've been there since 2015, so we've been in the space for quite a while. We've learned a few lessons, and that's really what leads us and drives us in the way we build solutions in the space. We've also got a couple of products of our own that we've been developing, and I'll take you through those here. And they're really about bridging the gap between Web 2 and Web 3, and I'll explain why. Before I start, I want to relate to the events of the last couple of days. I think it's a little bit hard to ignore. And the main thing for me about these events is really to think about fundamentals, right? Because I got into this space because when I looked at blockchain technology, I saw technical efficiency. I saw the ability to be able to transact and trade in a way that's technically very secure and efficient. And I think that's something which we can really bring to the way we transact, buy, sell, pay, and trade assets in the world today and tomorrow. But the technology itself is underpinned by the way it's used. And the fundamentals mean that it has to be decentralized. So the platforms, the nodes, the validators, the control of the blockchain itself has to be decentralized. That's not just a buzzword, it's not just a philosophy, it's something that actually underpins the security of the technology that you're using. So I think it's very important when you look at the projects and when you look at some of the projects that are out there that are huge, that have very big numbers behind them. Look at the fundamentals. Where's the value? What are the tokens? What are they actually worth? What's behind them? What's the technology? How is it deployed? And look for really where the gaps are, because there's a lot of things out there which really lack the fundamentals. And if you ask me what's going to survive in the long term here, it's the projects and the technology that really sticks with those fundamentals. Okay, so bridging the gap between Web 2 and Web 3. So Web 3 for me is really where we want to get to. It's really about embracing that technical efficiency, being able to trade and to have all our assets and our funds and be able to directly transact with each other in a secure and safe environment that's relatively cheap and fast with a minimum number of intermediaries. That's Web 3. In order to get to Web 3 though, we need to move from Web 2. And Web 2 today is where we exist, right? It's where we live, it's where all of our identities and credentials and all of our data resides. And it's also where all of the information about our assets resides, right? So before we get to everything being on Web 3, we have to take Web 2 with us, right? Now, if we think about Web 2 today, we look at all the different systems that are out there, social media platforms, banks and bank accounts, credit agencies, KYC checks that we might do, and so on. And what we explore doing, and we do this with a lot of the companies that we work with, who we build solutions for, is how do we bridge the data, right? How do we understand and be able to verify and check things that exist in Web 2 and allow that data and those checks to drive the activity and the movement of assets and funds in Web 3. And we deal with things like invoices as an asset, bank accounts, where we have historical information about people that might be checked for credit. Obviously social media, and that's part of people's identities, and other credentials that are checked through KYC processes and so on. So if you look throughout this conference, you'll see lots of companies out there doing things like KYC checks, but there's a big question about how do you take these Web 2 checks and verify them in Web 3. And so the two main areas that we find that we look at that we need this information for, one is tokenization of real-world assets. So how do we get the information behind these real-world assets and know that it's true in order to be able to automatically transact, be able to transact and invest through DeFi and so on? How do we verify those credentials? And the same thing with identities. And it could be identities of people or identities of businesses, right? And identities are multi-layered, right? It's not just, is this the person who I think it is? It's also, what else do I know about them? And how many parties can vouch for them? And what sort of historical information might strengthen what I need to know or think about them before I make my decision in relation to them? Right? So that could come from a whole range of sources, and that's true for people, for companies, for assets. Now, the way that this is done today, in most cases in Web3, in particular where private data is involved, right? So data that's in social media accounts, bank accounts, and so on, is we still have an intermediary, right? There's solutions where we have a standard Web2 application. It talks to APIs of third parties, it pulls the data, and then it sends it to the blockchain, right? Now that looks fine. The problem with that is that when the blockchain application, when the Web3 smart contract wants to verify something about that information, it really has no way to know whether that information is valid or true, right? It's basically trusting this server. And this server is just an application that's hosted by someone, and it could be doing anything, right? It might not even be going to that Web3 API, to that Web2 API, right? We have to trust that application. And that basically means that we can't trust it. And so we can't really move assets, let alone valuable assets, on that basis, or we shouldn't be, okay? Now, if this is data that isn't sensitive or that isn't private, then we would use an oracle, right? We'd use something like Chainlink, and we could just query the data through Chainlink nodes, and then the Web3 application will be able to make its decision on that basis. But if this is information that's private, sensitive, held in Web2 accounts, bank accounts, social media accounts, and other accounts that you wouldn't want to share with other people, then we need a different type of solution. And that's what we built with Silent Data. So Silent Data is a solution that connects with different Web2 APIs, pulls the data in a way that it can't be seen and can't be manipulated by whoever's hosting it, and then creates proofs that can be verified by Web3 applications, by smart contracts. Okay, and the data isn't shared with the blockchain, and it isn't shared with the validators. Okay, and it's a cryptographic audit trail. So the smart contract knows where the data's come from, it can be validated. It knows how the data was queried, and so we have all of the proof cryptographically verified. We connect with different types of data sources. We've implemented this for DeFi. So in DeFi, we might have investors who might need to be verified for KYC and for AML reasons. We might have borrowers who, again, those borrowers need to be verified in order to know whether the protocol should lend to them on an uncollateralized basis. So what information do we need in order to be able to lend without holding collateral? And again, we could plug into all this type of information, which is too sensitive to be shared through a public oracle, but could be shared through this type of solution. And why is this unique and why is it safe? So it verifies the Web2 data for Web3 applications. It does it in a confidential way, so the data, again, isn't shared with anyone. It will work with any blockchain, because all the blockchain smart contracts need to do is handle the cryptography in order to verify the proofs and the certification. And we can use it for real-world assets and real-world identities and so on. We've tested this implementation, we've tested it with Intel, because we're using their technology for secure enclaves. So there's a hardware secure technology here, which is where the data gets processed. Intel wrote a paper, published a paper about silent data and how it can be used to secure bank account data and to allow it to be queried privately without revealing it. We've worked with the FCA in their digital sandbox, EU and so on, and a whole bunch of organizations. Obviously, we've had security audits from the likes of Kadelsky, and we work very closely with a blockchain called Algorand, as well as other blockchains as well. So that's silent data. Another product we've been working with, where again we're sticking to the technology fundamentals and the cryptography and making sure everything is done correctly from the ground up, is a bridge, right? It's called London Bridge, because we're based here and we look out the window and that's what we see. And the bridge itself is initially between the Algorand and Ethereum blockchains, and it's a trustless bridge, right? Trustless bridge, we think of this as bridges 2.0. So it's very different to the types of bridges that are out there today, where you have a middleman who's effectively watching something on one chain, and on that basis doing something else on another chain, and that middleman can be hacked, compromised, and walk off with the funds for all intents and purposes. With a trustless bridge, the cryptography is strung together end to end between the two blockchains, And the validators, the bridge operators in the middle, can't interfere. Okay, they don't have the power to mint on their own or to interfere with the transactions. And so the validation happens on both sides, end to end. The way we achieve this is again using secure enclave technology. So we validate the blockchains inside a secure enclave using a tested code that we can't modify and we can't access. And the blockchain on the other side can then verify that that's been the case and that the verifications are all correct, and then mint on the new chain on that basis. So this is an end-to-end solution that's based on trustless cryptography. So those are the two products, London Bridge and Silent Data. And Applied Blockchain as a company, as I mentioned, we're a team of 100 developers, 100 strong team based in London and in Portugal. We have an office in Porto as well. We've worked with a whole range of companies, including some of the ones on here, and partners. We did a recent piece of work for Ledger, implementing an Ethereum EIP into the Ledger product. And we worked with a lot of these companies doing various protocols, DeFi protocols, NFT solutions, marketplaces, wallets, and so on. So a lot of experience, a lot of deep experience going into building what we think are solid solutions. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're always so efficient with your time, you know what I mean? You're always on point. Yeah, I'm really interested just to kind of know, particularly this year with everything that's been going on in crypto, you know, how does it actually affect Applied Blockchain? Are you guys just continuing to build out and execute on your products and not being too worried about what's currently happening on the price and volatility of the markets? You know, how do you run your business, especially in a year that we've had?
So, as I mentioned at the beginning, we've been around since 2015.
I know.
So this isn't the first crypto winter.
I know.
And as well as building, you know, resilient and good applications, you know, we've learned how to make the company resilient as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, going through one crypto winter was very, very painful. We only just survived it. This time round, we grew substantially in the last 2 years in the boom. At the moment, people are still building a lot. Right, so we're still getting more and more projects coming in, and we're growing the team. Going forward, depends how the market pans out, right? Because some of our projects come from existing industries, some come from crypto. Obviously, it's all it's all interlinked.
And how do you find being based here in London since 2015? I mean, surely you guys could have gone out to Asia, or you could have gone maybe to the Middle East. What was the reasons to stay here in London?
Yeah. So first of all, our customers are all over.
Yeah.
So half our customers in the US. Funny enough, well, we don't have a presence.
Yeah.
But a lot of our customers are UK. London's obviously a tremendous business hub, right? You just need to look around to see that. Our developers are spread, but they're mostly London, Portugal. Yeah, I mean, it's really because there's an ecosystem here. There's so many companies to work with. There's so many people to meet, and so many people pass through here as well. But it's just a great place to be based.
Well, it's great to see you doing what you do. You've got a booth here as well, right? So if anybody wants to know more.
Just down there, you can meet Anna, Sean, Miguel. They'll be happy to chat to any of you.
Adi, thanks so much, man. Appreciate everything that you do. Doing a great job.